Hey everybody, this is Mike Matsuno from Honolulu, Hawaii. Welcome back to our live stream today. I do live streams every so often, and today we had a really interesting topic, so I decided to do this. Many of you, if you don't know who I am, I'm Mike Matsuno, and I do YouTube. I do a YouTube channel, and normally I introduce things about Japan or things that are related to Japan. And in today's live stream, there's a little story, a little background story that leads to this that I'll start off with. You're sitting next to me here. You can see it's Alec Masuda, and last October, I went to Japan. My sister planned the trip, and I went with my sister, her husband, and Cheryl, my cousin, and her husband, Guy Masuda. Guy is actually Alex's older brother. Well, at that time, of course, I didn't know Alex. So anyway, on the trip, Cheryl tells me, "Oh, my brother-in-law Alec is going to come to Japan." And I said, "Oh, what is he going to do?" And she mentions, "Oh, I don't know. He's going to check out some things at the city hall, but he's going to ride the Shimanami Kaido on bicycle." So I've done several videos on the Shimanami Kaido, and so I thought, oh, if he's interested, he can watch the video. So she sends Alec the links and things. Anyway, Alex, he's professional in a way that he is seasoned, so he could ride the entire route, 75 kilometers, without much effort. But anyway, so that's why I did a video on Alec back when I was in Thailand. But come to find out, that wasn't his purpose of going to Japan, and that's what today's video leads up to. Alec was on a roots journey. Riding the Shimanami Kaido was only like a byproduct, or it was secondary. It was right in the area he was doing the research for his roots, so he decided to do it. And no, not on the whim, but he had thought about it, and he was able to do it. So today I want to talk about Alex's roots journey. Now, Alex, for those of you who don't know Alex, he's a retired elementary school teacher, and he tells me he does not speak Japanese, but he has spent a year and a half back in 2007, I think it was, teaching at an international school in Tokyo. So that's his experience in Japan. And outside of that, it was his recent visit last October. So I'd like to introduce Alex. And Alex, welcome to the show again. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Mike, for having me on again.
So I'm just going to jump into it, Alex. So what inspired you to go to Japan to get your koseki? And for those of you, many of people may not know what koseki is. Maybe you can explain what koseki is. So you go to Japan on the search for your family koseki. Can you share with us?
Actually, yeah, it started with that first trip to Japan back in, I think I got back in 2008. So when I
Uh,
came back, I had several months between jobs. That's when I first did my research. So back then, I just did my direct ancestors. So I knew at that time who my Ise ancestors were and the general area they were from, which was Yamaguchi and Hiroshima. And then I stopped there. Fast forward about 16 years to last summer, being retired, I actually did I started a project of trying to make a digital archive of old family photos. So I started pulling out, old photos from the albums, started scanning some. And then that kind of triggered something about, hey, maybe I should expand my research, to the extended family members. So, in that 16 years that went by, the amount of information on the internet now has just increased tremendously. So I discovered familysearch.org, created my free account, but then I realized you can't download all the documents you want from home. So I had to go to the actual family search center,
Uh
which
huh.
for me, the nearest one was at the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints on Baratania Street.
Uh huh. Uh
So
huh.
they have a family search center there. So when I went there, I met this wonderful husband and wife team. So a shout out to Liza and Corona. They helped me as a non-church member, showed me how to use their computer system to continue my research. And then they also told me, oh, next month the church is sponsoring this family history day where they have people knowledgeable in their cultural history. And then they run it like a workshop. So I marked that down in my calendar, right? So I continue with my research and then I tried to do ancestry.com from home and learn that they have a free version, which a library card. You can access the ancestry.com library edition from the state library for free. So I went there, and then in going there, I met a librarian. So shout out to Kat, who not only helped me with my research, but she told me about, hey, you ever tried getting your immigration card for your ancestors from the Japanese consulate? So at that time, I had no clue that that was another step in the process. So I researched that, and in the links under the description, that's what I used to get the information. So I followed through with that, sent in my paperwork, and then 1 week later, thanks to Connor McKenzie at the consulate, I received a letter with copies of immigration cards for my ancestors, including the specific address in Japan for the municipal office at which the koseki resides. So at that
Wow.
point, I'm thinking, wow, I'm getting a lot of information. So now this trip is becoming a reality. And then by coincidence, the very next day was the workshop, that family history workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to that and I meet these two wonderful ladies. So shout out to Carol and Mieko, who later, months later, turned out to be the people who did the translations for me. So I met all these people at the right time that made this trip a possibility. But I still had one big hurdle. I didn't know how to actually do a request at the office. And that's where you enter Martinez Wolf. So
Okay.
for the
What? One
viewers,
second. So you're saying that you need to make a request, and then this is for the koseki, which is the family register, correct? And can you explain a
right,
little bit
right.
about what the koseki is so viewers understand a little bit better?
Yeah, so for those that don't know, here in the States, all your vital statistics, so whether it's birth, death, marriage, divorce, adoptions, those kinds of things, it's all based on the individual. The Japan system, they organize it by the family. So instead of individual, you would have the household members, and the vital statistics are all on that one sheet as a family. So that's basically what a koseki is.
And can I ask you a question? So what can you find out from your koseki?
Well, you won't know initially unless you can read the Japanese on it. But after you get it translated, you'll know the members of the household, and it's usually quite large back then. Their households included a lot of people. So you will have their birth dates and if they got married, marriage dates, adoptions, things like that. So same thing. You'll get the vital statistics. but it's all in kanji and you got to get it translated.
I see. Okay, and then you can. Why don't you continue? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but so you decide that after going to and so many different people come into your life to help you just by chance, but you also find out how to. I think you said up before you had mentioned to apply or to write in for. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that part, like what you started to discover about going to Japan, but also I think you talked about something about mail in or something before to me.
Right, right. So at that point, I felt like, okay, I think I have a lot of important information, but I still didn't know the details of how to actually put in a formal request. So that's why I mentioned Martinez Wolf. So for people not familiar with him, there's a provided link of his bio,
In the bottom.
and I would consider him like the guru of koseki, especially for foreigners trying to access the family registers from Japan. So I used his video resources, which are also provided in the links. Then I started to understand, okay, this is specifically what I need to do with the information in order to process this request. And then also in the links are mykoseki.com. Also has terrific explanations about the step by step procedure to actually make a request. So if people out there are getting close, I strongly recommend they watch those videos and read the website, and it'll spell out everything in detail of how to process that request.
Okay, so let's say, Alec, I'm a Japanese American who doesn't, I'm third generation or fourth generation, and I don't speak Japanese, but I'm interested in getting my koseki, my family registry. And I can follow those links, which are in English. And when I actually go through the process and I mail it in, I can do it in English. I don't have to write Japanese or translate anything into Japanese.
Actually, there's a form, there's a link that Martinez and some of his colleagues, I think, created. I would call it a hybrid request form. So it has the Japanese kanji, but also the English. So it's half and half so that we can use it. But if you submit it, they can understand it as
I see.
well.
I see.
So that form is also linked. The exact form I used from Martinez is in that link, and that's the key step. So you fill that out, and whatever, it's mostly you're going to input in English people's names, like you, your parents, your grandparents, your issei, great grandparents, and so forth. The translations would be mostly of their names. So if you know their kanji, the surname, adding that on helps the people in the office
I
to
see.
track things down.
I see. I see. Okay. So continue. So did you send in for your family register, or did you, like, what did you do after that, or what made you decide to go to Japan?
Yeah, so once I understood the mail-in process, so the links that Martinez has and mykoseki.com spells out the mail-in process. But I did the in-person request, and I did that because I contacted Martinez through email, which he also graciously agreed to provide as a link here. So anybody out there who wants to contact him personally, you can use that email link. So I emailed Marty and I asked him, you know that mail-in request form? Can I take that to Japan and use it in person? And he said, I filled it out as if I was gonna mail it in, but instead of mailing it in, I took that and my documents as evidence to prove, I'm connected to my Issei ancestor, and I took that with me to Japan, and it worked.
Okay, tell us about the trip. You plan. Tell us about how you planned for it and what you planned for it.
I should point out though, there are some key requirements that have to be on that form before you mail it in or go.
Okay.
So the first part is relatively easy. As long as you have documentation of how you're connected to your Issei ancestors. In my case, I'm fourth generation, so that's my great grandparents. I had that back from 2008, so that was easy. I already had the proof. The part that's more elusive is you need to find out their honseki, which is what I learned, their residence in Japan. You have to know the specific place in Japan they came from. So previously I knew Yamaguchi and Hiroshima, right? The prefecture. That's not enough to apply. You have to know the village. And finding that village name can prove to be very elusive. So the way
Where would
I
you
got
find
it,
that out? Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so the way I got it is from the immigration card from the consulate, the Japan consulate here in Honolulu. On that immigration card, they have the specific address of where the Issei ancestors lived in Japan. That is a key piece of information. Without that, you cannot apply.
So you're saying that you have to know, of course, the village or the town that the Issei left from, and the way that you can get that is at the consulate or maybe at an embassy, and you need to try and find, like, you had the immigration card. Is there any other way to find that out?
So I was lucky because the consulate had the four immigration cards I was seeking. And it's no guarantee because I was told back then it wasn't really a law that they had to register at the consulate when they got here. But for me, it was there. So for somebody who runs into a problem where, okay, I don't have the immigration card, then they have to do some extra research to find that village name. And there are other documents that may include the village name. I know for myself, I saw what was that? That was a ship manifest that had my ancestor's name on it. And then further down, it says where they came from. And it had the village name on there. So there are other documents that may have it and explain this alternative way to get that honseki if it's not through the immigration card.
Can you talk a little bit about the family register and and the honseki a little bit?
Yeah, so once you have the proof of direct lineage and the honseki, then you can fill out that application and either choose to mail it in or take it to Japan in person. But you have to have that address. Oh, and here's another thing. On mykoseki.com, which is another provided link, they have a village. If you type in the village, let's say you find the village name, but you don't know where the municipal office is in Japan, right? You can type in the village name and it'll return the office you need to either mail into or go to in person.
I see.
If you do it through the immigration card, the consulate will tell you, here's where you go. But there are other ways around it if you don't have an immigration card.
Okay. So basically, you need to have the town that they come from. That's key. And after that, you can go through
That
the
is,
process of applying, right?
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. I'll say continue your story and your journey.
Oh, I might add too that besides mailing in, do all of that. I know there's a third party service option, and one of those links, Densho, the first link, is an example of a third party service that people can use to attain the same thing. But of course, you're paying for a service, so that's something to consider. Or you can
So,
mail it in or go in person.
okay, so there's three different ways, right? Um, Mail in person, and hiring an outside third party to help you out. Is that correct?
Right, right. And
Okay,
I can
and
even think of other possible options. So, for example, there's no guarantee when you request a koseki, it's going to be there, right? So, I took a chance. I filled out 4 requests, hoping that when I go there, the koseki will exist. But there's no guarantee it's there. So, one other option to prevent that disappointment from happening, I can see someone doing a mail in request to find out if the koseki exists first, and then maybe arranging it with the office
to go and pick it
instead
up.
of them mailing it back to you. They hold it there.
Ah.
Then if you go there, it's just picking up the koseki.
Do you know the percentage or odds of getting your koseki of people who have applied for it?
I don't know. I do know that there's a storage limit. I think currently it's 150 years,
Oh,
but what I read on mykoseki.com prior to 2010, I think it was as low as 80 years.
oh wow, that's not that long.
So yeah, so the offices, they don't have to get rid of it, but they have a choice. So there's no guarantee what you're looking for exists. So like I said, if you wanted to be safe, you could do a mail in first and then go. But I took a chance and I got lucky that Koseki was there.
So, what inspired you to go in person? Did you want to go and walk where your ancestors walk, or what was the motivation to go and take that risk and go to Japan?
Yeah, so that my mindset at that time was, okay, I'm gonna go take the chance. If they don't have it, my secondary goal was to visit, the land of where the villages once were. And for me, it was simple because just by coincidence, three of the my Issei ancestors' families all. So I was able to get 3 sets of koseki from one office that was on this island, so that the next day I was able to easily ride through all three.
Okay, I see. I
But
see.
I mean, think about it. Let's say you do yours, Mike. What if you have 4 different offices to visit, right?
Right,
All
right.
scattered over Japan. That would make, visiting a little more tricky.
Yeah, and I think that maybe people don't understand the reason that it's four is because the grandmother, grandfather, grandmother, grandfather, and your mom and your dad's side, so that's four, right? And that would be that they each came from, let's say, in the worst situation, a different prefecture. One in Kyushu, one in Hiroshima, one in Okinawa, maybe one in Tokyo or wherever. And going to each of these city halls would be very challenging because of Japanese, because of cost, and because of finding these places. Is that correct?
Right, right, exactly. Yes. So when I found out from the consulate that 3 of them were at just one office, And then I Google mapped the where the villages once were and found out, oh, it's all on this one island. So in 2 days, I took care of three.
Wow.
First day
So,
was getting the koseki.
mhm.
Day two, I did the bike ride.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, I forgot about the comments. I'm sorry, I got so into the story, I forgot. I just wanted to welcome all of you for commenting. And if you have questions for Alec, please write your questions in the comments. I'm looking at it right now. Masaki, good to see you, Masaki. CNM, Cheryl, hi, Mike, Alec. Masaki says, one of our other classmates, Matthew Higashida, wants to do a roots journey too. So this would be perfect for him. He found several distant relatives in Kumamoto, so we are all visiting them in Kumamoto in November. So he also did that, and now he's going to visit his relatives. And Irasima-ich, hello from San Francisco. Great to have you. So any of you out there, I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier. If you have questions about a roots journey, and especially if it's in Japan, or you have comments, or you've done it before, or you have any kind of opinion or question, please put it into the comments, and we'll have Alec or myself at least take a look at it and address it. So please, thank you. So Alec, I remember you were mentioning in that going to these islands were difficult because it wasn't a big city and there wasn't a train. Can you tell us how you figured out how to get to these islands and where these islands are?
Yeah, so for the Yamaguchi Prefecture, the three villages weren't on the main island of Honshu. It was on this island, I think it's called Yashiro Island, which is connected to Honshu with a bridge. So no trains go to that island. You either have to drive on, catch a bus, or like me, I decided to ride a bike on there.
Bicycle.
So depending on where the office is, for other people, the office might be in the heart of a big city. But for me, it was off on this island. So that's why
Now,
you have to research the exact location on a map and then figure out, okay, how do I get there, right? The
and what did you
train,
use?
car.
Did you use Google Maps? How did you figure out how to get to where you were going?
Yeah, Google Maps mainly.
And then renting a bike, you figured out where there was a rental shop and stayed at a hotel, and you figured it all out by yourself using the internet. Is that correct?
Right. I didn't want to if nor use the bus, which is on that island, coming every couple of hours or so. So I decided biking would be my mode of transportation for that.
I see. Did you have any problem with not knowing Japanese? Or how much Japanese could you speak, and did you have any problem with language?
Oh yeah, that's another thing. So if you do a in-person request, that might pose a barrier, but I learned maybe a little bit too late. I would recommend for people who can't really speak the language, learn how to use a translate app on your phone. That will solve most of your problems. So for me, I know a little bit of Japanese, but because I look Japanese, when I walk in there, they might assume I can speak. So I'm sure you experienced this too in your early years. I make it a point to take the initiative and let them know I'm a foreigner and I don't know much Japanese. And then once they know that, you can move forward much more smoothly.
So you
Oh,
take
and
in,
by the
go ahead.
way, sorry, that request form, which is in both Japanese and English, that will make it clear too that you're a foreigner.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you go in there with that form and you say, "Oh, I have a koseki request." Once they look at it, they're gonna know this guy's a foreigner. And then, if you know how to use your translate app, you could speak English, and they know already, right?
Right.
And then the Japanese that comes out in Romaji, you can read it to them, or you can just show it to them, and then that's
And
how you can communicate.
and there wasn't any problem, not much of any problem then, using the Google Translator, going in person, not speaking Japanese, and just going on your own. Is that right?
Yeah, in fact, at one office, the worker there was using the app herself because she couldn't really speak English. She would speak Japanese in it, show it to me, and then, I would read it, and if it made sense, I would acknowledge. If not. So it can, if both people use it, it's even easier.
What was the cost for the actual? Is it like 300 yen or 500 yen for the actual document?
They have a set price, which is 700 a total cost, because you don't know how much koseki they're gonna find for you. So a koseki could be as simple as one page, and it's 750 yen. But the koseki could also be 5 pages. It'll still be 750 yen, but they might find multiple sets. So for me, I think in the end, I spent about a little over 1 yen. So which is about 100 US dollars for everything. And it has to be cash. You got to take cash too.
So there was four for 10,000 yen, and you were fortunate because they were three of them were in one city hall. But the actual cost of the kosekis, even if you got four in different places, would probably be about the same, right? It's just the transportation of getting to different places. Is that right?
Right, right,
Okay,
right.
okay. Did
And
you want to talk?
again,
Go ahead.
no, you won't know the exact total price unless you do a mail-in request. Then they'll tell you, right? Oh, this is how much you have to pay. But if you do in person, you don't know what they're gonna find. So you just have to have cash ready to pay.
So why don't you talk a little bit? I'm going to put a slide up of the koseki. You might want to talk to them a little bit about what it is, and it's hard to understand. That's why. Okay.
Oh yeah,
I'm
and
gonna.
it looks intimidating too.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Let me see it. So this is just one page of a koseki. So if you want the full detailed explanation, the links that are provided by Marty and mykoseki.com, they explain um, all of this. But in general, on the bottom half are the people, and the upper half are some of the vital statistics, maybe where they were married, the dates. On the bottom, you have their names and their birth dates and their role in the household. And now you can see why you have to get it translated, because it's very complicated. Also, you might wonder, for those people not familiar, a lot of the names have the X's on them. So what happens with the koseki is, if a member of the household moves out of the household, let's say, for example, the child gets married later as they get older, their name gets crossed out or lined out, and they will end up on a different koseki, which would be their husband's koseki. So over time, eventually, everybody's name will be eliminated. And then technically, it becomes a joseki. which means the members of the household are all gone for whatever reason. Could be death, could be marriage, could be naturalization in another country. But once everybody is X'd out, then it becomes a joseki. So you can see in the kanji here, the jo in joseki has the basic meaning of, being expired, or your name is no longer on the register. So when you do the request, technically you're asking for a joseki of your ancestors. And you don't have to worry about that, because on that form that Marty has, it's all explained in Japanese for the workers there, that you're actually requesting joseki for your ancestors.
Why is it joseki and not koseki?
Well, koseki, you can think of it as koseki is like the active register. The people are still living at that address. But as they leave the household, eventually everybody's name is going to be crossed off. And that's when they call it joseki. And that's what you use for your ancestors who are obviously long gone already. So it's just a technicality in the name.
So when you die, you get X'd out, correct?
Yeah. Or if you move out.
So Alex, sorry, the guys with the blowers are here. Tell us a little bit about now, okay? Now that you got, after you got it, like what are you planning to do with it, or what have you done with it so far? Like, why would people want to get a koseki? Is it just for to have it, or is there something they can do with, like, I don't know. What do you do with a koseki, or what's the purpose or the benefit?
Well, mainly to go deeper into your family tree, right? Once you hit your Issei ancestors, the only way to get more information from Japan in with the koseki. There's no public database you can access from home to find out your ancestors before your Issei ancestors. That's the only way to get it. And to me, it's a form of paying homage to those that came, before us.
Yes, I think that there's a lot of people out there, Japanese Americans especially, who maybe are curious that they would like to do something like this, or maybe didn't really know that it was possible. But I think this opens the door for a lot of people to do it, especially because they don't have to have Japanese. And like you said, they could do the mail in, they could do the third party, or they could do the combination of mail in and then third visit, which I think is the most what do you call, cost effective. And but again, you went and you did it. So when you got all of these four, how did you feel? Like, yay, I got it, or like what was there any kind of, and walking in the village of your great grandfathers and grandfathers and grandmothers, how did you feel?
Well, like I said, I didn't know if the koseki existed, right? I took that chance. So that was a big relief that I actually got something in hand. So I felt a lot of a sense of accomplishment, but relief as well that, the koseki did exist. The visiting, the bike ride was more of a spiritual thing, in a way to pay respect to, but um, it was more of a spiritual experience, I would say. Whereas the koseki was more like a task, right? To bring back documents.
What have you done with these documents since you've returned to Hawaii?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, thanks to Caro and Mieko, who I met at that workshop, I had their contact info. So when I came back, I made contact with them and I sent copies to Mieko. And then eventually, when she was done, I met with her and I had the translations. After I had the translations, I started to map out all these people and, extend my family tree. And then, of course, share it with family members too.
Did you find out anything unique or different or things that you may have not expected?
Oh, yeah, yeah. When you get the Koseki translator, I'm pretty sure you're going to have some answers to maybe questions your family had, but it will also lead to more questions. So I ended up doing more research after I found out who's who and look at the dates. So there's a whole wealth of possibilities. For example, one of my Issei great grandfathers had the same last name as his wife. So in our family, we didn't know exactly why that is. But after the Koseki came back, it was clear that he was what is called a Mukuyoshi. He was adopted son-in-law because the dates showed, okay, he got married on this date, but he was also adopted on that same date. So he took on the wife's surname. So things like that may pop up.
Yes, so for those people who are listening who don't maybe know the concept of mukuyoshi, which is basically when a family line has only daughters, for example, and the father wants the business or sometimes the name to continue, they will adopt a son-in-law into the family with his agreement that he will take their name and continue on the legacy of the family. And so this was very common in Japan. And so a lot of big businesses and companies also did this because they wanted to continue on the lineage. And usually the person marrying into the family cannot be the first son because the first son has to carry on their family tree or family legacy. It's usually a second or maybe even a third. Normally a second son is the person that is chosen for that. And then I've heard different stories or sometimes he or his family, the son-in-law's family, I think are given maybe some kind of endowment, some kind of gift or something. Again, I don't know enough about that, but yes, that was very common to continue the legacy. So as Alec is saying, the marriage and the name, the adoption happens on the same day. It's because that's exactly what happened. Is there anything else
Right.
interesting that maybe not in your family, but people have talked about, like like that people have found out that were interesting?
Oh, regarding the Mukuyoshi though, the reason today is usually business related.
Okay.
Back then though, I don't think that's why it happened.
The name, just a name, right? They wanted to continue their family name.
Right, right. Yeah, and like you said, likely because one side had the daughters and the other side had the sons, which on the Koseki is true for at least my family. It was like that. It was the second son marrying into a family with no sons.
Anything else you find out that kind of surprised you?
Well, you're gonna find out all these different names. It's gonna be an extended family, right? So when you get those names, you might still have to do more research. And through that research, who knows what you might encounter with that. So adoption is one.
Now, I'm just thinking like you were very fortunate to meet. I'm sorry, the two names of the ladies were Mieko and
And Carol,
Carol,
right?
because they both were Japanese nationals, right? Originally,
Well, one Mieko is
Miyako, okay. somebody has to be, because those kanji names are so difficult. You know, you would have to be a native Japanese speaker, I'm sure.
Mm,
But just that process, it is so, I mean, that would cost and take a lot of time. And so you were just fortunate that you met those two.
right.
And what would other people do? They would have to hire someone to do that part?
Well, translation options again, third party service, which you would have to pay for, of course. Marty does translations too.
Oh, he does. I see. I see.
When I was corresponding with him through email, he mentioned that he also does translation. So you got third party, Martinez does, and I'm thinking if you know somebody who speaks fluent and reads fluent, there's no guarantee they'll be able to translate because there's some old hiragana that might be used, and the number system for the kanji was different that they use. But you know what? Thanks to Martinez, if you check out his videos, he does a whole series of deciphering the koseki. So you might be able to do a few things on your own and then seek out someone who's more of a
Right. Because
expert
Google
in that field.
because Google Translate really won't work for this part of the
No.
project, right? So maybe talk a little bit about the technology aspect of how the technology helped you to do all of this, and maybe if it was 20 years ago before the internet, that how challenging it would be.
Oh, yeah, that would be very difficult. I don't think it would have been possible for me. Well, maybe it was, but I probably wouldn't,
Have
do
pursued
it
it.
at that,
Yeah.
yeah, that time. So now, with the smartphone, you can get across the language barrier and you can plan your trip, accommodations, transportation, everything from home. So it's very realistic now.
So would you recommend for people who have no Japanese? Oh, one more aspect is, as you said before, is that you started the project after you returned from teaching at the international school and you had some time, and that was the beginning. And then after you retired, you took on this project. So time is a huge factor in this, right? Because it takes time. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You have to do the initial legwork of finding out who your Ise ancestors are. And then once you reach that point, then you have options, right? To go further with the koseki or just leave it as is. And then whether you want to do it as mail in or in person or third party, there are choices now, which is the good thing. You have
How,
options.
how much time would you say it took you to prepare and get all these documents and plan your trip to Japan?
This all happened, let's see, I would say within a 4 month window.
4 months.
All,
Okay.
all these things happen. And part of it is because once I knew I had the right info and I understood the process, I planned the trip right away because of the season.
Oh,
I wanted to go when it was, in October. So by September, I felt confident. Hey, I think I have enough. And then that's when I started planning the trip so I could be there in October. And I knew I was going to do bike riding, right? So I didn't want it to be too hot or too cold.
and that bike riding, was that the Shimanami, or was the bike riding just getting from island to island?
The initial bike ride was not the Shimanami. The Shimanami happened because the fourth koseki I needed to request was in Hiroshima, in Onomichi.
Right.
So the Onomichi City Hall is so close to the start of the Shimanami, and that's why since I was there, I figured I might as well do it since I'm there.
So those of you who are listening, the Shimanami is not that easy. Alec is in good physical shape, and that's why he was able to do it kind of not on the fly, but he could just do it without like worrying about the training now because he was already in good shape. But that was an afterthought, and so that's why we had made a video about Alec, and we're going to make another one because the other one didn't come out very well because I did it when I was in Thailand. So stay tuned for that one. But that was an afterthought because he got the four koseki. Had he not got the four koseki, he wouldn't have been able to do the shimanami. Is that correct, Alec?
Well, actually, if I went to Onomichi and then they say, "Oh, sorry, we don't have koseki," I would have did the bike
Oh,
ride the
because
following day
that
anyway.
was the end. That
Yeah,
was the end of the trip. Yeah. How many
yeah.
days were you in Japan at that time?
Altogether, it was about a week.
A week. Okay.
So the first day didn't count because from Hawaii to Japan, yeah, you pretty much
Right.
scrap the first day.
Right.
But I was able. Oh, people might wonder how long does it take to get a koseki if you go in person?
Right. Right.
So the first city hall I went to, I requested 3 sets, so that took a while. So I was there about 2 hours, I would say,
2 hours.
waiting.
Okay. Okay.
The fourth one only had one request, but after waiting about 45 minutes, they told me they were having some issue in finding parts of it. So they asked me if I wanted to wait or come back, and then I decided to go visit another island of my ancestors, and then I came back later to pick up the koseki. So basically, I think it's safe to say it's same day service
Okay. I
if
think
you
so
go in
too.
person.
It might be a few couple of hours or whatever, but it's the same day, correct?
Yeah, it will depend on how much koseki you're requesting and whether they can find it or not. So, like we discussed, if you do a mail in request first, I'm wondering if they would hold it for you and then you go there and you just pick
Oh,
it
just
up
a
and
speed.
go.
Probably not Japan, but yeah, it's a nice thought.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the comments now, and Irasima one says, "Did you do the DNA test as well? For me, of European ancestry, it confirms some of my connections." Alec, did you do any kind of DNA testing?
Oh, no, no. That's another thing with technology. That's the next level, right? I'm not there yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to go
Oh,
down that route. Yeah.
okay. And J Star says, "Thank you, J Star, for being here too." Again, that's a great question about DNA testing or genetic family tree test. Okay, so now, if I were to look back, you spent how much time doing when you first came back from Japan in 2000, what, 2008, in that time, you spent what, 4 months there working, starting the project. Is that correct?
Right. But remember, I'm retired. So,
No, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about back when you first started the idea, when you had some time to work on it. When
right.
you,
So I started in July
yeah.
and I was in Japan by mid
Oh,
October.
okay. That's this time, right? But back when you first started, the idea, how much, do you remember how much time you spent on the initial idea before? That was back in 2000, when you came back from the international school?
Sorry. Um, that didn't take too long because I was just focused on who my Ise ancestors were.
Okay, okay. And
So
and then
once I
four,
got the certificates, I basically just stopped right after that.
okay, okay. And then it was 4 months, and then you went to Japan for 8 days. Okay, so that's pretty much the time frame that it took you to get everything.
Yeah, basically. In fact, I got the koseki and did the bike ride to the Land of the Answers, all in 4 days actually.
4 days. Okay. Okay.
But that
Wow.
was on the go. It was by no means a vacation. It was more like a mission. Yeah. So
Alec,
I guess for
go.
viewers, if they want it to be more like a vacation, the option of getting the koseki through mail, getting it translated, figuring out, okay, now if I want to visit, you can just focus on visiting, right? And you don't have to worry about getting the koseki. So that's another option. Get it first by mail and then go.
Yeah, that sounds like the most cost-effective way because if you can't get it, then no real sense going, right? Because
Yeah.
and experiencing disappointment, you were more of a risk taker. You're just gonna go and hopefully find it, which you were fortunate enough that you got it, right? Um, is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience, about the process with the viewers or people who might be interested and they're thinking, huh, I wonder if I should try, or that sounds kind of interesting, but I don't have time or I don't have money, or is there anything you want to share with the viewers?
Well, hopefully, I'm just hoping that people have a better understanding of the options now and the resources are there. So there's really the only thing that might prevent somebody from accessing it is not the knowledge because that's all there now. It's just a matter of yeah, time and budget. Can you afford it, right?
So
So if
basically,
you don't have time to travel now, you could do a mail in and then, when you're ready to travel, then you can go.
time and money, right? And the rest is just doing it.
Yeah. But now it's a possibility. That's the big
Yeah,
difference
yeah.
compared to years before.
And that's thanks to technology, internet,
Right. And,
Google
and people
Maps.
like Marty
Right, right,
and MikeKoseki.com,
right.
knowledge is power. And right now it's all there
And the
combined with the
internet, right,
technology.
right. All the videos, internet, so everybody can view it. They can go through that process. Yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
thanks to you too, we have a platform now where we can, talk about options. So
Wow.
it's there.
That is like most people would never even it wouldn't dawn on them that they could even do what you did because one, it's so difficult to read Japanese or speak Japanese, and two, it's just the Japanese system sometimes is mind-boggling and very confusing. But you and Martinez and my koseki.com and all of them have put it into such a nice package almost that it's very possible. It just, as you said, takes a little money and takes maybe a lot more time, but it's all doable, right?
Right. I had no idea back in July that I was gonna be in Japan, getting koseki and riding around, my
Yeah.
ancestors' villages. It
Wow.
it just because of resources and people out there who are willing to let others know.
And you were very fortunate, whether it's serendipity or whatever, that all those people you met at the LDS
Right.
church,
Yeah.
and meeting the Miyako and Carol and just everything, just kind of it just started to happen. It's like you started the momentum. I think the alchemists, they say, when you want something so bad, or when you that the universe transpires to make it happen. In yours, it just kind of happened, and you got it.
Yeah. In short, I met the right people at the right time
Yeah, yeah,
and found the right resources,
yeah.
and the rest is history, right?
Well, thank you, Alec. We really appreciate you sharing. It's a subject that even I would have not wanted to take on koseki hunting or looking for it because it sounds so complicated. But you made it into very easier steps, And the videos and the links, everyone, are down in the description. You can go and just follow that. And Alec is very adamant about just follow it, and it will take you to where you need to go. And so it's all there. It's just up to you if you are interested in finding your koseki, finding your family registry. And again, as Alec explained at the beginning, the family registry in America doesn't exist because we are more individual. But in Japan, the koseki is like everything. Like even to get any kind of document, like, or if you're going to buy a house or get a visa, the koseki is very powerful. So if you have it, it really works for your advantage, especially if you plan to do something in Japan or work in Japan or get a visa in Japan. That I think that, really, really something to think about. And just to say, I have my I know where I'm from. These are my roots. I mean, that itself is, I think, powerful. This is where I come from. This is the village that my great grandfather was born in, or something. I mean, it's nice to know where you come from, and I think all of that is in a package. And thank you, Alec. You have made it much easier for people who are interested to attempt the journey and to be successful. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, thanks, Mike. Just trying to pay it forward.
Yeah, that's great. So, last thing, everyone, Alec and I will be back for the Shimanami video maybe in 2 weeks. We're going to redo the old one because when I did it from Thailand, it was all glitching up and the sound was bad. So, we're going to do a similar one about the Shimanami, bicycling the Shimanami. And he did the entire thing in 1 day, 75 kilometers. So he's going to do that version. Whereas my version is always we do a few islands and we move much slower. Usually have an older crowd with me. I'm doing it on e-bike. Alec does it on a hybrid, and he did it in one shot. So that will be, stay tuned. That'll be in 2 weeks. So thank you again, Alex. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you in the comments for all of you who wrote, Adasima, J Star, and all of you who wrote into the comments, Masaki and Matthew and everybody. Thanks. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks, Alec.
All right. Thanks,
Take
Mike.
care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.